Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing another installment in the 3 cards, 1 palette. Sometimes it's 4 cards, to be honest. But I have some fabulous cards for you, and these all feature the March 2023 Kit of the Month or Club Kit of the Month from Spellbinders, and I'll be using the die of the month along with the Glimmer of the month, the large die of the month, and the embossing folder of the month. I have information linked below in the YouTube description about these kit clubs, but they come once a month. You can choose the kits that you want. There are more than I am showing here. There are so many options. These kits are a great value, and they are a great way to get new product into your craft room every month for inspiration. So I'm just kind of walking you through the products that I'm using here, and then I'm going to walk you through the color palette. Now, this color palette kind of harkens back a little bit to last month's color palette, but we're changing up a couple of things. So I have these bright greens along with this kind of sea glass color, which is very similar to the blue I used last month. But then I have that gorgeous papaya color, and then I have the citrine, and that is also repeated from last month. But I'm bringing in a darker jade and a little bit deeper green so that I have a variety of greens. Now, the pop in this palette really comes from this papaya color. And by the way, I will have all of these cardstocks linked in the YouTube description below. So this papaya color is going to be the color that I use as my pop on every card. You're going to see it. I mean, you're going to see most of these colors on every single card. But you're going to notice the way I use the papaya on all of these cards is just a little different than the way that I use the other colors. So I'm kind of using it as my one big punch on the card, and all of these other colors are going to come in to support it in different ways. Now, because this first die of the month set has this greenery and these florals, I really wanted a variety of greens. I didn't want to use the same green tone throughout. And you'll notice that the large die of the month, which is that large tree set that creates kind of this folding pop-up card, it has a lot of greenery involved as well. So I wanted a variety of greens, and this citrine color is fast becoming one of my very favorite cardstocks to use. I love the pop of it. It is a bright yellow green, and it just looks good with so many colors. So on this first card, I am using that butterfly die cut from the Papaya cardstock, and then I'm going to use the greenery cut in that Pesto and the Citrine, and I'm going to mix them up so that brighter green is going to be on the top of the butterfly, and that little bit deeper green is going to be on the bottom of the butterfly. Now, this die set was designed to have the greenery on it, and I've seen it used in so many different creative ways. And I love the mix of this green with this sea glass color. Once I get all the florals assembled on the greenery, then I'm going to assemble the greenery onto the butterfly, and you could really do this any way that you want. Now, to assemble the 2 halves of the butterfly together, I'm using the body of the butterfly, and I've die cut this from Concord and Ninth's mushroom cardstock, and I'm just going to use that body to hold the 2 pieces together. Now, I will reinforce this here in just a bit because it felt like it just had a little too much give for my liking. It probably would have been okay because I ended up putting some foam adhesive on the back, which kind of held it together too. But I really felt like I wanted to reinforce it. So you can see that beautiful butterfly that I've created. And from the beginning, my plan was always to use this in kind of a window card. So I have a piece of white cardstock and a circle die from Spellbinders, and I'm going to use that circle die to die cut a window from that white panel of cardstock. That will become my card front. And I've also die cut the butterfly again from some vellum. I thought it would be fun to kind of add a layer of vellum on the back side of this butterfly to give it just kind of a layered ethereal effect. So I'm just kind of positioning this behind my completed butterfly and just offsetting it to the top and the bottom just a little bit to add just a special little touch to this butterfly. Now, once I get the vellum layers on the back of this butterfly, I'm going to flip it over, and on the back side, I'm going to add a piece of acetate to reinforce kind of the binding together, I can't think of a word right now, of these two pieces or these two halves of the butterfly. Now, I left quite a bit of this acetate hanging out of the top because I thought maybe I'll do something creative with it, kind of like dangling from that window. I ended up trimming it off. I didn't do that. But for now, I wasn't sure exactly where it was going, so I just left the excess there in case I needed to use it. Now I'm using this beautiful layered scripty sentiment die set for my sentiment on this card, and I've layered a piece of gold cardstock over a layer of white cardstock to create that thanks sentiment. And at first I thought I would use the sea glass cardstock for the shadow layer, but I ended up using vellum instead. Now I did think that some embossed cardstock behind this window would be a really fun touch. And so I am going to use the embossing folder of the month and run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. I'm using the universal plate system here. So I am using A and B, and then I have my embossing folder with the cardstock and a C plate on top of that and just running it through. And I got a really beautiful embossed piece of cardstock here. You may have noticed I used a baby wipe to kind of just loosen the fibers of the cardstock before I ran it through my die cut machine with that embossing folder. I find I get a little less cracking when I add some moisture to the cardstock. I don't necessarily like to spritz it because I kind of have a heavy hand and sometimes I get a little carried away. So I prefer to use a baby wipe instead. Now you can see there, I actually added this piece of cardstock, this embossed piece of cardstock behind my window using some liquid glue, and I decided it just needed a little bit of dimension. So I quickly pulled it off, and then I grabbed one of these panels of foam adhesive that I create myself. I traced my window on that panel, and then just used some scissors to cut out that circle from the center of the foam panel. And then I'm going to peel back the top of this backer and add my embossed piece of cardstock behind this window. I was much happier with that kind of difference in dimension, giving a little shadow to that embossed layer behind the window. Now, I already have my sentiment in place. You may have noticed me adhere that earlier. I'm going to take a double layer of foam adhesive on the back of my butterfly and position that in the window. And then I'll take this entire card front and adhere it to a A2 size card base that I created from the sea glass cardstock that I'm using today. Now, I did want to mention I use Concord and Ninth sea glass quite a bit in my card projects. This is actually the Stamp Market sea glass. So don't be fooled. It's a little bit more blue and a little less green than the Concord and Ninth one that I normally use. So just a little note there. So I finished off card number 1 with a little bit of sparkle, and now we're moving on to card number 2, and I am going to be using the Glimmer Club Kit of the Month from Spellbinders. I love this because it includes not only kind of this greenery or leafy pattern, there's a couple of actual hot foil plates in the set. I'm only using one of those. But it also includes the die and a little layering oval that I will use in this card project. So I'm starting off with some Spellbinders Champagne Glimmer foil here. The color is champagne. And I am using my Glimmer hot foil system to run that through my Platinum 6 and add my hot foil to this Papaya cardstock. You can see I got a gorgeous result. And then I'm going to take the coordinating die, hold it in place with a little bit of low tack tape, run that through my die cut machine to die cut it. And I've also die cut this scalloped oval, which fits perfectly in the center of this piece here from some jade cardstock. Now, I had some greenery and florals left over from my first card project, and I thought it would be fun to use those on this card project as well. So I went ahead and assembled those, and then I'm just arranging them on kind of the right-hand side of this oval. I'm holding them in place with my tweezers, and then I snuck a little bit of liquid glue behind them to hold them in place on that oval. Now, once again, I thought some embossing on the bottom of this cardstock would be absolutely beautiful. So I'm taking a panel of this Citrine cardstock. I'm using a baby wipe to kind of loosen the fibers, and I ran that through my Platinum 6 again using that embossing folder. I love this pattern. It is so beautiful for so many occasions. And I trimmed that little citrine piece down, and I am going to add my hot foiled piece to the very top of this embossed piece. And I'm using liquid glue for this. Anytime I have a piece of embossed cardstock, I find that liquid glue works best. Now for the sentiment, I used one of Yana's, I think it's called Special Sentiments. I'll have it linked below. I hot foiled that, added that to the center of that little oval there. And then I die cut another piece of sea glass cardstock, and I'm layering this on top of that sea glass cardstock just to add a little bit more color to this card. And then I added that entire thing to an A2 size white card base, and that finishes off card number 2. Added a little bit of sparkle. Again, I will have those linked in the YouTube description. Those are from Spellbinders, and they are a really beautiful, like opalescent kind of confetti. So we're moving on to card number 3, and this card features the large die of the month from Spellbinders for March 2023. There's a lot of die cutting here. So I did that off camera. I'm using the same colors as before because after all, this is 3 cards and 1 palette, and I'm mixing the greenery on this tree as I assemble it. So I've added just dots of liquid glue to the little leaves that are on the tree. The cool thing about these die sets, when Spellbinders designs them, you can actually see which leaves go where by the shape on the tree. So it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. You're just going to put the pieces where they fit. And as I mentioned before, I'm mixing up those greens. Now for the florals on this tree, which by the way, I did die cut from some gold cardstock, I mixed up that papaya color along with that jade color. And once I have it all assembled, I layered up some of those florals with a couple of layers. That is the finished little tree there. I think it's so beautiful. Now I'm going to add some layers to this, and you can see that kind of label shape that I'm using is from the large die of the month set. And I'm going to layer some green on the bottom of it. But what I did want to mention is that this large die of the month actually has the pieces to create a pop-up card. I'm not using it in that way today. I'm using it just for a regular card. But keep in mind, this is a very versatile die set because it can be used to create both regular cards and that special pop-up style card, which I think is so much fun. Now I'm just getting all of these pieces assembled here. Liquid glue, tape runner, I kind of mix it up. I have another hot foiled sentiment from that same hot foil set that I used in the previous card, and I'm just adding little details to this. Now, as I get this put together, I'm kind of realizing that while an A2 size card would work for this, I don't feel like it would be ideal. And so I am going to actually move this to a 5x7 card project. And the thing that is very cool about the embossing folders from Spellbinders is that they are large format. So I was able to emboss this 4.5 by 6.5 piece of cardstock with no problem at all. Now I added that on my little grouping there onto that embossed piece of cardstock with some foam adhesive, and now I'm going to create my 5x7 card base. So I'm taking my cardstock and I'm cutting it to 5 inches by 10 inches. Make sure you're using the long edge to cut that 10-inch measurement. And then I'm taking it to my scoreboard and scoring at the 5-inch mark. Then I'm going to fold this in half, and I have a side folding 5 by 7 inch card base. I can then add this entire panel to the card base, and then I'll just finish this card off by adding a little bit of sparkle, adding that confetti that I've added on each one of these cards, just kind of sprinkling it there through. And that finishes off my 3rd card project for today. So I really love this series because you can see how one color palette can create cards that really look and read very differently depending on how you mix the colors. And I love using these Club Kit of the Month from Spellbinders because there's so much variety in them. They really are a great value, and if you haven't checked them out already, I encourage you to do so. So I'd love to hear in the comments below which of these 3 cards is your favorite. Just let me know. I'm not sure if I know which one is my favorite. It might be that second one. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. It means so much that you spend your time here with me. I really appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed these projects and this color palette. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on YouTube so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.